Attacks in World War I were very predictable. It would start with the artillery firing shells across the battlefield to kill the frontline troops on the other side. To make sure this happened, in the Battle of the Somme, the British launched the largest barrage ever in military history up until that point. They fired 1.6 million shells over 7 days and nights. If the plan worked, their soldiers should be able to walk across no man's land virtually unopposed. Mines were also used in World War I. With a mine, you would dig a tunnel that would go all the way under no man's land and plant explosives under your enemy's trenches. This was normally done in a key defensive position. When the mine was detonated and exploded, it would then kill all the soldiers in that area. The mine we're about to see here was actually exploded on another battlefield on July the 1st. There were 2 mines that would be detonated on the battlefield at La Boisselle. So let's take a closer look at the attack on La Boisselle. If we look at the map in front of us, the orange section at the bottom of the map is the position of all the British troops. The blue section at the top is the position of the German troops. On the white section in between is no man's land. In other words, the gap between the two sides. So what was the aim for the British that day? The aim for the British was to try and take the town of La Boisselle. Now that sounds very straightforward. But the town of La Boisselle was very important to the Germans. And its importance lay in the road, if you follow the pen, that ran right the way through the town. Roads were very important in World War I. They enabled you to move all your troops and all your supplies. So the Germans had built an incredible defence around this town. Let's look at their defence. Firstly, they've put very experienced soldiers on this side of the battlefield. They've already fought in major battles in World War I. They're battle hardened. As experienced troops, when they put the trenches in, if you follow the blue line here, they have taken all the high ground. So all the German trenches along here are higher than the British. They're looking down on them. So they've got two advantages. One, they can see what their enemy is doing all the time. And two, if their enemy should attack, they've got to attack uphill. On top of that, the Germans have built two huge things called redoubts. A redoubt is actually a fortified bunker. And that is to defend a key area. And in this case, both these redoubts are overlooking a place called Sausage Valley. Now, Sausage Valley doesn't sound very French. In actual fact, that is a nickname the British soldiers gave this area. And the reason for that is the Germans would have an observation balloon above this valley. And that balloon would spy on the British troops. Because the balloon was a sausage shape, the British named this area Sausage Valley. And what goes with sausages? If we go to the other side of the map, yes, it's mash. So we had Sausage and Mash Valley. They may sound funny names, but there is absolutely nothing funny about these two areas. Mash Valley is the largest piece of no man's land on the whole of the Somme battlefront. Sausage Valley is 600 metres long and it's all uphill. So again, this was a great advantage. This is the view from the side of La Boisselle, looking out across Mash Valley. We are actually on the German front line. Attacking here was the 20th and 23rd Tyneside Scottish and the 25th Tyneside Irish. As you can see, this is a vast open space. In actual fact, Mash Valley was the largest piece of no man's land on the whole of the Somme battlefront. For our troops to have any chance of crossing this battlefield, they had to hope that the 7-day artillery had done its job and taken out the frontline troops of the German defences. As well as the artillery, the British had planted a mine under the front line of the Germans, and again this should have taken out a huge part of the line for them. Let's just see how big Mash Valley actually was. The British are mainly attacking across this ridge here, and as you can see, this is the part that is 700-800 metres wide. Because of that, they attacked two battalions side by side, which would mean 2,000 soldiers would be coming over this ridge. Now, Mash Valley wasn't actually flat. You actually had to come downhill first of all, then it went flat in the middle, but the German lines were actually higher up, so they had to go uphill again at the end. It was a bowl shape. After 7 days of artillery, the guns finally fell silent, and at 7:28, the mines erupted. 2 minutes was allowed for the debris to fall. The next sound that came were whistles. That was a signal for the British troops to leave their trenches and advance forward across no man's land. Out of the trenches they came. The next sound everybody could hear were the pipers. The Scottish and Irish pipers led their soldiers into battle, and today was no different. The soldiers advanced down the hill. There seemed to be no problem, nobody was firing. And then suddenly, when they got to the bottom of the hill, machine guns opened from all around. The battalions had nowhere to go. They were totally annihilated. And this is the place where air soldiers' bodies still lie. This is the view from in front of Lochnagar crater, looking back towards the British lines. The British line is actually the thin yellow line we can see halfway up the picture. Attacking here we have the 21st and 22nd Tyneside Scottish and the 26th Tyneside Irish. As we can see, the lines are very close at this point, only 200 metres apart. Because of this, the Germans have created a very heavy defence on this side of the battlefield. In order to increase the chances of crossing no man's land, the British have decided to plant a huge mine under the German front line. This mine would be known as Lochnagar Mine. It takes its name from the place where the tunnel was started, which was a trench called Lochnagar Street. At 7:28, the mines were gone. 2 minutes later, the whistles went. The British were on the attack. They quickly came out of their trenches and advanced uphill towards the crater area. The mine had done its job. It had killed 300 frontline troops. They got to the front line. The ground was red hot. The debris from this mine had actually gone up over twice the height of the Eiffel Tower. The Tynesiders very quickly took the front line and they pushed on through towards the second line at the back. Everything was going well. The plan was working. This is the view from halfway up Sausage Valley, looking back down towards the British lines. The British lines will be on the thin yellow line we can see about halfway across the picture. Attacking here we have 6 battalions. Coming up the left hand side of the battlefield as we look at it are the 15th and 16th Royal Scots, followed by the 27th Tyneside Irish. On the other side of the battlefield we have the 10th Lincolns, followed by the 11th Suffolk and Cambridge, followed by the 24th Tyneside Irish. Sausage Valley, remember, was 600 metres long and it was all uphill. As well as that, there are 2 huge redoubts, fortified bunkers, one over to our left hand side and the other one, Sausage Redoubt, right at the top of the valley. Because of the length of the valley, the Royal Scots had decided that the night before they would creep out and lie down in the battlefield, and they got within 200 metres of the German lines. The battalions on the other side of the battlefield had been told to wait back an extra 5 minutes. Their trenches were right opposite Lochnagar Mine, and they were worried about the debris coming down. So after the whistles had gone, they had to wait an extra 5 minutes before they could attack. At 7:28, the mine was dropped. 2 minutes later, the British were on the attack. We're coming forward here and moving forward. Immediately, the Royal Scots came under machine gun fire. They had to turn off to the side. 5-10 minutes into the battle, and suddenly the Lincolns come out of their trenches on the left-hand side. They attack towards Lochnagar Crater, which is just over here now on the left-hand side. They manage to take the crater. Right behind them, we've got the Suffolks. The Suffolks push all the way to the top of Sausage Valley, and this is where the other redoubt is. When they finally get to the front line, they're met by German troops who have got flamethrowers. Their frontline soldiers get burnt to death. They turn round and head back to follow the Royal Scots to the side. There is total carnage in the battlefield. The British generals see what's happening and they order the Irish battalions to stay back in their trenches. It's too late. They've left. They're heading back up Sausage Valley. Another 2,000 soldiers on the attack. Fucking hey, that was full on. This would be the view of a German machine gunner. A German machine gun fires 600 bullets per minute. That's 10 bullets per second. When we look at the picture in front of us here, there are 100 soldiers coming down the battlefield. Now remember, a battalion is 1,000 soldiers. So that is 10 times the amount of soldiers we see in front of us. The British that day were attacking in columns of 3, which meant you would have 1,000 soldiers, followed by another 1,000 soldiers, followed by another 1,000 soldiers. The British had been ordered to come down the battlefield in an orderly fashion. So they would come out something like the formation you see in front of you here. Now it is often said that they marched like this all the way across no man's land. That is not true. Once the machine gun started, the soldiers would then run and try and find cover. The only problem with that, as you can see, is there is nowhere to hide in a battlefield like this. And the other thing is, because there are so many soldiers coming down behind you, you can't turn round and try and go backwards. Machine gunners did not aim at individual soldiers. In fact, what they would try and do is spray bullets across an area like this. The idea is to keep soldiers from crossing a certain part of the battlefield. Because the British put so many soldiers in the battlefield that day, the machine gunners could hardly miss. And in actual fact, 1 out of every 2 soldiers that stepped into the battlefield that day got shot. So how did the battle end? For the British plan to have any chance of working, they had to take out the German front line with the 7-day artillery barrage. This failed to happen. The first reason for this was that 1/3 of the shells that were fired were actually duds. But the main reason was that the German trenches had been dug a lot deeper and stronger than the British expected, and the shells that did land failed to kill the frontline troops. That meant the Germans were then free to defend their trenches. The mine that was down the side of La Boisselle, the Germans knew about and they'd withdrawn their troops, so that had very little impact. The rest of the troops had taken up positions in their frontline trench, and they waited for the British troops opposite to actually come down the hills in front of them. Once they got past the point of no return, the machine guns opened and the rest was history. These battalions were totally annihilated. They made no gain whatsoever. In the area between the Glory Hole and Lochnagar crater, there was some success. The mine at Lochnagar took the Germans by surprise. It killed 300 frontline troops, and that allowed the Tyneside Scottish and Irish in that area to take the frontline trench, the second line, and even onto the third line trench. The only problem was that by the time they got that far back, they were running short of troops and ammunition. They found themselves retreating back to the front line by the end of the day. For the battalions attacking Sausage Valley, it was like Mission Impossible. The Royal Scots set off to go straight to Sausage Redoubt, but the machine gun fire was so heavy they were forced off to the right and ended up at Scots Redoubt. On the inside, the Grimsby Chums managed to take and hold the Lochnagar crater area. The Suffolks pushed past them all the way to the Sausage Redoubt, only to be met by